Welcome back, everyone. I'm Paul Revere, and welcome to CV School. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Langley, Tier 4 American carrier. How does the Langley differ from the Hosho? Well, number one, and probably the biggest thing, is the dive bombers themselves. Langley is HE dive bombers as opposed to the AP dive bombers found on the Japanese line. Now, what does that mean? Big picture, it's going to be easier to stack fire and flooding. In other words, dot damage with the American carriers versus the Japanese. Whereas the Japanese, you've got that more consistent damage potential with the AP dive bombers. If you're careful and strategic in your play, you have more opportunities to stack up continuous damage while you're recycling your aircraft. Now, that said, at Tier 4, with the flight times as low as the aircraft are, really kind of struggle to set up a lot of long duration. As you move up in tiers, your planes get faster. You may trigger someone using their damage control party on your final strike, and you're able to get there with aircraft again on your next wave in order to get that dot ticking. So, matchmaking, tier 5, nothing too terrible. 2 CVs per side. There are a lot of destroyers in this game. Starting out the rocket planes, as far as comparisons back with the Hosho, rocket planes are basically identical. Later on, you'll have the opportunity to use Tiny Tim rockets with the American carriers. Those are higher fire chance and significantly higher damage per rocket, with the trade-off being you have fewer rockets per attack. So hitting destroyers easier with the smaller rockets. You have much more of them. But myself personally, I prefer the Tiny Tim rockets for engaging cruisers and battleships. You have that much more penetration. Do a little scouting here, find a couple of their DDs. If I remember right, my aim isn't that hot. My rockets in this game. Got the other Langley supporting, and we're getting a little chip damage in here. The enemy CVs are electing to attack on top of us, so 3 plane kills, I'll take it. Now my target here is the cruiser that's in ACAP. I see that the Pan Asian DD is going to try to flank down the one line. Not terribly concerned with them. Once this French cruiser's out of the way, we can get to work on the Miyogi. Like the team's going to take him out pretty regularly, or pretty handily, excuse me. Another difference between the Hosho and the Langley here, you have much slower torpedoes. Langley Torps only do about 35 knots, whereas about 50 knots with the Japanese torpedoes. So it does require a bit more lead. Now I do try as much as possible to land my torps on the bow section of the ship. Got a higher flooding chance there. And we do hit the aft section with this one, and we do trigger a flood. So at this point I'm flying out. I want to get away. I want to see if he uses his damage control. So circling around out of AA range, he still hasn't damage control, which kind of questionable. He was at, pretty sure he was at full health, very close to it. We hit him the first time. So at this point I'm thinking, okay, his damage con is on cooldown. I may as well dump some more torpedoes into him and get back to the carrier, get another squadron. And we can notice by our damage numbers that that flood damage is still ticking up. So now, the thought process here, we know at some point he's going to damage control this flood as soon as it's off cooldown. We want to be there to get some more dot damage stacked up as soon as he uses his damage con. Damage stop about 35,000. Really need to get there and try to get a fire on him now.
Ведут огонь. Пройдена контрольная точка. Достигнут конец маршрута.
Trying to dodge the flak as best we can. Coming in from the rear. As I've said before, gives you a little more time to line up. Unfortunately, it leaves you that much more exposed to their AA as you're overtaking the ship from behind instead of you get our fire. And he immediately damage counts. Now we would like to get that next fire ticking. Know his damage control is on cooldown. And here comes our friendly Langley, taking advantage of our efforts here. Gets a fire going on everybody. Try for the second fire in superstructure, don't get lucky. Our dive bombers do survive here. Might get a chance to light one on the stern. Unfortunately, luck's not on our side, so it is what it is. Head out with a rocket plane, see if we can hunt down this last destroyer. But being able to stack up that dot damage, being able to make your first attack, you get a fire, you get a flood, back off. Wait and see what they're going to do. As you progress in tier,
Наша команда получила преимущество.
it's much easier to get the fires with your dive bombers and with your rockets. Multiple fires in one attack pretty much guarantees someone's going to damage con. Fly off and wait a little bit, 20 seconds or so, 30 seconds. I like to keep an eye on the clock, the game clock in the top right, just keep track of that time,
Захожу на линию
and come back in and try to stack up that dot damage again.
огонь. Атакован. Возвращаюсь.
For all intents and purposes, we had a huge game by Langley
По
standards,
нам ведут огонь.
just with that
Начинаю
very
атаку.
first torpedo we dropped at the subsequent flood.
Атакован. Возвращаюсь. Взлет произвел.
Get some more rockets in the air trying to finish off this DD. And at this point, this game's pretty readily in the bag.
Наша команда близка к победе. Начинаю атаку.
But as far as the Langley goes, and if you're curious as to
По нам
which
ведут
carrier
огонь.
line works for you, which one would be a better fit,
Возвращаюсь.
I can tell you at Tier 4, the Hosho feels like a much better carrier to play.
Взлет произвел.
And that's just a combination of the faster torpedoes are much easier to hit, coupled with the consistent damage from the AP dive bombers. The HE dive bombers, while they are pretty good at starting fires in the Langley, they just don't have that consistent damage.
Пройдена
I had a game earlier where I made
конец
multiple
маршрута.
drops on the Tier 5 Italian
Теперь
premium
третий
battleship,
пилот.
Giulio Caesar, and just terrible RNG. I know in that situation, had I been dropping the AP bombs, I would have seen much more consistent damage. But they are both very similar to Tier 4, and you really can't go wrong with either one. Great thing about Tier 4, you're not dealing with a whole lot of AA. Your bottom tiered can be kind of painful if you're not careful about target selection. Going after things such as Omahas,
По нам ведут огонь.
Congos, if they're built for AA, the New York can be painful to deal with. But other than that, as you can see here, the flak clouds are far from the wall of flak that we'll see later on as we progress up to the higher tier carrier gameplay.
Возвращаюсь. По нам ведут огонь.
Almost landed that torpedo right before the game. 45,000 damage. We didn't make a lot of attacks. A lot of that damage really came from that flood. That's really why I wanted to show this video, to show the damage multiplication that we can see with flooding damage. See, we did 39,000 damage to that Miyogi alone. 27k in fire, or excuse me, flooding. That's really where we made our money this game. Not too bad on aircraft loss. We only lost 6 planes. It was a pretty quick battle. And we weren't messing with too many high AA targets. But anyways, that's our look at the Langley. If you'd like to see more Langley gameplay, or you have any specific questions as to the Langley, let me know, and may cover it in another video. But from here, I think we're gonna move on up to tier 6. Start looking at the ratio. So, thanks again for watching, and let me know what you think, and I'll catch you next time.